Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, everybody.
It's Sunday of the Dead. You all
Good.
stayed up way too late last night, huh?
No, I was good last night. I went to bed at a decent hour and got my beauty sleep. Didn't work, but
So, gentlemen, I would love to start this off. I want to go back to the beginning. I want to ask you guys where this special effects journey began for you.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a good
The
question.
origins.
Well, my interest began when I was 11. I saw a movie called The Man of a Thousand Faces. Anybody ever seen that?
Yeah.
The story of Lon Chaney. I have a son named Lon. I named him after Lon Chaney. But that was it. From that day on, I spent my every waking moment learning about makeup and messing up my face. I used to go to school with half my eyebrows missing, nose putty in my hair. Then I realized I could make up my friends. But then I wasn't allowed to play with them anymore. They would go home with burn makeups on them, you know. But anyway, that's where it started, you know. And back then you couldn't learn it really, except for Dick Smith. Please tell me you've heard of Dick Smith. Because I have a school and the students show up and they don't know who Dick Smith is, or
and you let them in anyway.
or Rick Baker.
Well, someone has to teach them the
Yeah,
ways,
we're
right?
gonna throw away their money because
Yeah.
they haven't heard of
Yeah.
Dick Smith, right? But he would share information, and that's how he invented everything we do, and that's how I learned, you know, from him.
I have a question for you that
Yeah.
I've never asked you. Were your parents into movies?
No,
No? So your love of it came from you seeing them, not, because for me, my thing was my parents loved movies. So it took me to everything, and that was how I was exposed to films. So I never asked you about
No, yeah.
if your parents like.
no. I mean,
took
my
you to
dad
the-
would watch Gunsmoke every night, but my mother wasn't into it. And I remember, you know, running away to go to see movies, and I can see my dad searching the theater for me. But I did it on my own. You know, back then, movies were 25 cents. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd have to take a bus or walk to the
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it was, you know, like my parents were big movie buffs, so I felt I was very fortunate that when a new movie came out, they would take the whole family. You know, interestingly enough, like when Jaws came out, which is 50th anniversary next weekend, they went opening night and saw it, and then
With
the
your
next
brothers
night-
and you?
Well, they saw it themselves the first night, and then the next night they took us. Because they're like, oh, our kids will love this movie. It shouldn't scar them for life. But you know, my dad is also a big gadget guy, very much like Tom. You know, Tom's sort of like my second dad anyway. But
Oh, it's Father's Day, by the way.
yes, oh, happy Father's Day, everybody.
Happy Father's Day.
Whether you know it if you're a dad or not. Anyway, so my dad was a big gadget guy, so we had the Super 8 projectors, and you'd get all the Universal monster movies that were condensed into 8 minutes, and you would turn it on and you'd put it against the wall with a sheet on it, and then you would watch it forwards and backwards.
Castle
1,000
Films.
times. Castle Films.
Castle Films.
So before VHS and Beta and all that stuff, that was how you saw monster movies. Is that you would just watch it, and you could pause it, and you would watch it over and over again. So I just fell in love with monster stuff, and I grew up in Pittsburgh, and there was a TV show called Chiller Theater that Tom worked on, and so every Saturday night they would play horror movies, and and then of course after Jaws, there comes this little movie called Dawn of the Dead, and that did it for me. Like those two movies really kind of changed everything for me. So it's his fault.
It's all your fault. And I mean, I don't know if you have a history in this, but Tom, tell me about your history in acting. How did that start? When did you start becoming a performer?
In grade school.
Yeah.
I remember the principal of the school saying, you should pursue acting. I was just doing a bake sale sketch, But in grade school, and then when I got back from Vietnam, I was stationed in North Carolina, and there was a theater there, and I walked in one day, and that was it. I was in a play every night for 8 years. I was King Arthur, I was Benjamin Franklin, I was poor as shit, I had nothing. I was living off unemployment. But every night I was in a play, and that was, so my acting began in theater. And of course I met George Romero, and he put me in Night Riders and, Dawn of the Dead and all that stuff.
But is it true that he met you when you were in high school and he was auditioning for a movie?
I was a sophomore in high school. He came there to pick a kid out of 1,500 kids to be in a movie called Wine of the Fawn. It never got made. But I'm the kid he picked. Did a screen test, you know. The movie never got made. But years later, when he was doing Martin, I wanted to audition for Martin. It was already cast. But he saw my makeup portfolio. And I played a part, I did the stunts, and I did all the makeup effects in Martin. And that was the beginning of our history with me and George, you know, as an actor and as a makeup effects guy.
Did you tell him you were the kid?
Oh no, he knew, he remembered.
He remembered? Oh wow.
It's a very small community in Pittsburgh of people, and you know, I met George ironically because we were on a family vacation in Italy, and I think he was there meeting with Dario about Dawn of the Dead, and I was like sitting at the table and went, "That's George Romero," like across the room. And as he was getting ready to leave, my brother and I went up and said, "Hey, you're George Romero." And George was the kind of guy who'd be like, "Oh, you should come down to the office. It's on, you know, come visit." And I was like, "Shit." I didn't even have a driver's license yet. And as soon as I got my driver's license, like I would drive down.
Weren't you like 14?
And, yeah, 14 or 15. And then I got my driver's license, and I would go down. I would go down to his offices when he was just there working and writing and doing stuff. And
Didn't you visit us on Dawn of the Dead?
no, Dawn I visited weirdly because the guy who was the mall liaison, his name was Bill Wagner. His son went to Swickley Academy where I went. And he goes, "Hey, they're shooting this zombie movie at the Monroeville Mall." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then, so I went and visited then, but I hadn't met George. I don't think I'd met George yet. I can't remember. It may have been right before or right after. I don't remember. But you and I met on a creep show because I was visiting George out in Monroeville where this soundstage was. And I went in my first visit, and they had said, "Hey, do you want a job, you know, as a production assistant? You could go." I said, "I can't. I'm getting ready to go to college."
But didn't you shoot video for me?
I did, but that's where I met you. And then I would come on Saturdays because I was still in high school.
Yeah.
I would come out on Saturdays and film stuff with Tom.
We were there for 6 months.
Yeah, building it.
We were preparing it months before they started shooting.
But no, I'm a shitty actor. In response to your original question,
You're right.
I'm not very. I mean, I'm in movies like I'm in Inglourious Basterds, and I'm in Halloween 5, and I'm in Day of the Dead, and you know I do little cameos, Dusk Till Dawn, and stuff like with Tom. I would probably, you know, I have to say, I would probably be a better actor now than I would have been when I was younger, because I feel like I'm more comfortable. Even though, just to segue for 10 seconds, I have a new show coming out in September called Guts and Glory, and it's a horror competition show. So if you have Blair Witch Project and Survivor and they have a baby, that's what the show is. So the contestants sign up, which is insane because they have no idea what they're signing up for, but they'll jump on a plane, they'll go wherever, and you put them in a bus, they'll do whatever you tell them. It's the craziest thing, and I thought, well, fuck, we can do whatever we want with them. So we had 10 contestants, and each episode we kill them in front of the other contestants who have no idea that it's about to happen. So we shot 6 episodes. One episode is a possession theme, one episode is a buried alive theme, one episode has a monster in it, one episode is a zombie episode, and basically all the camera people filmed the reactions of the contestants who had no fucking idea what was happening. And I'm the host. So, we're talking about acting.
Yeah.
I can't stand watching myself. Like when I'm working on the edit, and as soon as I come out, I'm like, all right, just stop it there. Tell me how it looks. I'm not, I don't know.
I feel the
like,
same.
you're better at that. I can't watch myself.
Do we have any audience questions right now? Yep.
All right.
Oh, he's got them all written down. Holy shit.
All right. So within the last year, we had Smile 2 and The Substance, which have, in which Parker Finn and Corley Virgo made extensive use of practical effects and makeup. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on those 2 movies, if you had seen them, and also like how you feel that filmmakers do seem to be returning to more practical effects rather than just computer imagery.
They seem to be. I mean, the last Star Wars movie that J.J. Abrams made, I mean, it was full of practical effects, you know. There was a movie they were bragging about everything being practical. I forget the movie now, a horror movie. But I love the makeup and the substance, you know, that was pretty good. The story, I don't know, I was kind of tuned out of that, but it was practical, you know, it was all practical.
Yeah, it was a Sam Raimi movie, basically. It just was super outrageous, and the makeups were fun. Some of the people that worked on that movie were part of my crew in France on Daryl Dixon, and really nice people. Look, it's hard to say, you know, the industry is changing really fast, like accelerating so quickly now with AI and what the filmmakers are able to do. It's just, I don't know what it's gonna look like in 5 years. You know, for me, you know, I still have my effects company and we still do a lot of stuff, but you know, there's less and less, in my opinion, there's less and less practical stuff. If you look at like Final Destination, the new Final Destination movie, it's all digital. Like, I know Todd Masters did some practical stuff, but it's not in the movie. So, you know, most of our work is TV stuff. You know, all the Walking Dead shows and Daryl Dixon and, you know, we did Fallout and Interview with a Vampire and a lot of that kind of stuff. But there's not as much feature work. There's some, but not a lot. I mean, most of our bread and butter is TV stuff.
There seems to be a disconnect when you see CGI, because you can almost always tell. When you see my stuff or Rick Baker's werewolf transformation, that was happening right in front of you, you know. You see my stuff, it's happening right in front of you. And there's an appreciation of that that doesn't happen with CGI. They still haven't mastered things like car crashes and blood spurting and, you know, things like that. And you can tell, 12-year-old kids can tell. You know?
Well, look, and that's what's great about shows like this and people like you, because you really embrace it. And that's what, you know, and I've been doing this for 40 years, you know, and people come up and want to talk about Evil Dead 2 and From Dusk Till Dawn and all these movies that we did. And, you know, I just did an interview for Spawn, and I thought about all the stuff we built for that movie. It was all the suits, it was the clown makeup on John Leguizamo, it was the big 12-foot Violator hydraulic puppet and all this stuff, and it took months and months to build all that. Those kinds of shows don't happen anymore. Now you'll get stuff like Nosferatu. You'll have one really great character makeup, but those big kind of superhero, those big extravaganza movies, like even the Predator movies and stuff, like they just don't make them the same way anymore.
Terrifier 3 was all practical.
Yeah. No, I'm not arguing with you.
Oh no,
I know that there
Who
is.
was also a
I know there are
Terrifier
lots of
3
practical.
this
no
one?
argument. There's no argument whatsoever.
Yes.
Well, you know, I hosted a Hellraiser panel months ago, I think it was in Vegas, and Sean Chapman, who was just here on the stage, brought something up. He said he read an article about like neuroscience, and he says that they have figured out that we have a natural aversion to CGI because the brain knows it's being tricked. Whereas we see a practical effect, no matter how schlocky it looks, and we're more into it, it takes us into it. But we see the CGI and the brain knows it's fake and it's being tricked.
Well, can I quote you on that?
Quote him on that, yeah.
Is there ever a movie, it's kind of a two-part, but is there a movie that came out that you really wish you had been the effects lead on or the artist on?
Every one of them.
Yeah. And is there an effect in any movie that just really wows you? This is for both of you.
Well, probably from some old movie that Dick Smith did or Rick Baker, you know. I thought of it as the latest exhibit from your favorite artist. If a Rick Baker movie came out or something that Dick Smith worked on, you know. But yeah, it's all magic, you know. Magic exists. To me, magic is music, it's movies, you know, there really is magic in the world.
Can I quote you on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, if I ever invented a time machine, I would just go visit movie sets. It wouldn't be like, oh, you gotta go kill Hitler or World War II. I'd be like, I want to go on the set of Creature from the
No,
Black
I'm going to
Lagoon.
1925, MGM, the
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera. Watch Lon Chaney put the makeup on and the dressing.
Right. I mean, that's the kind of, those moments, and you're talking about an effect in any movie. I mean, you could walk into the other room and talk to Linda Blair for 5 minutes or David Naughton and just remember, you know, how that impacted you. And I think one of the reasons why this generation and our generation is so affected by this is because when you went to the theater, before videotape was invented, you would see it in the theater for frames. You know, the shark eats the guy in the estuary, and you see it for a couple frames, and it burned into your memory. So you can't replay it. Your memory, your brain is replaying it over and over again. And when you see Frankenstein for the first time, your brain takes an image of it. And the only time that you can experience it again is when you go to the movies to see it again. That's why people would go and see the movie over and over again. So I feel like a lot of that rewired our brains in terms of imagining or processing monsters, because you saw it for a couple seconds and it had such an impact, an emotional impact on you, and then your brain would replay it. So it was like on a loop. And I find that personally very fascinating because
we sit there behind our tables, and every now and then you'll notice somebody is just standing there staring at you. And I understand that, because if I was in the dealer's room with Linda Blair, I would just stare at her and think, this woman was in the greatest horror movie ever made.
Yeah.
There she is, right there.
Yeah.
You know, I see Michael Biehn, and I think of him as Ringo in Tombstone, you know. Well, that's really part of the fun of being at these conventions, you know.
Definitely. Do we have any in this section? Yes?
So one of the things that I often find is I enjoy experimenting, giving myself a limitation. You can find anything now to make negative effects with it. The only thing limiting is money and time. Do you find yourself now being able to give yourself limitations and challenges?
Well, you said the key word. You said limitations. And I have found out that they always, without exception, they always make you more creative. Limitations like not enough money, not enough materials, not enough people, not enough time.
Yeah,
That's the
time.
important one, not enough
Yeah.
time, okay. They always make you more creative. What was the question?
Does it make you more creative?
Well, no, makes you, do you find time what?
Get to experiment with finding ways, creative ways to some of these solutions. Do you
Absolutely.
ever get a chance to?
Well,
still
again,
innovate?
those limitations bring that on. They make you more creative. You know, Dick Smith was on the movie set of Scanners. All of a sudden they wanted a dead body, a dead burned body. You know, there was a plastic skeleton somewhere. He laid it out and he made bread dough and sculpted a body on the skeleton with bread dough and took a blowtorch to it. And it looked like a burned body, you know. Those limitations of not having enough materials or, you know, made him creative. Bread dough, you know, it should be foam latex, it should be silicone, you know. But yeah, it always makes you more creative.
The first meeting on any movie or any TV show is always the most exciting because there really are no parameters. The director will tell you what he wants, you'll read the script, and you just start talking about ideas, you know. And somebody said to me the other day, like, I'd love to know the way your brain works and how you process things, because my mind goes right to specific, like, I have a visual image of it. But I think to your question, sometimes the director will challenge you. Like Quentin Tarantino never uses digital stuff, ever. So when we did Kill Bill, we chopped the top of Lucy Liu's head off with the sword. And we didn't have CGI to do it. So Quentin was like, well, we gotta figure out how to do it practically. You gotta take the whole top of her head off. And me and one of the other artists at the shop were talking about it. I'm like, well, let's do it as a forced perspective. Let's sculpt the top of her head, but instead of sculpting it round, sculpt it as like an oval, and you glue it on her forehead. And when you look at it, it's like you're looking across the cut off head because the perspective is oval shaped. So we ended up doing it as a forced perspective in-camera gag, as opposed to like a digital. We had a fake head, of course, of her as well. But because Quentin was like, oh yeah, we're not using CG. When we did Inglourious Basterds, we did all the scalpings. I just said, you know, Quentin, take two is gonna be really hard because once we slice into these prosthetics and we peel it back and there's going to be blood everywhere, it's going to be really difficult to clean that all up and reseal that cut. So we might have to digitally clean it up. And he went, it's 1978. I don't know what. And he goes, there's no CG doesn't exist. It's 1978. So his mindset was, you don't have that as a tool. You just got to figure it out. And we did because he kind of threw that challenge out.
Sometimes you have to teach directors that these are magic tricks. You need a shot of this before this shot can possibly work. Let's give the murder weapon some weight, so when the rubber weapon comes in, you still think it's the weighted weapon, you know.
Yeah.
But these are magic tricks.
Yeah, that actually is a great point, because when we did Misery, we did the ankle break on Jimmy Kahn, and the shot right before she smashes the leg, she lifts the sledgehammer up right next to her, and you're like, okay, that's fucking heavy. You're teaching the audience, this is heavy, it's real. And then when she lifts it up and she swings it down, you're not thinking, oh, they switched to a fake foot. You're thinking about how heavy the fucking sledgehammer was. So when she swings down, and you have the great sound effect and that, you know, it, like Tom said, you know, sound effects, camera angles, you know, performance.
Magic, same kind.
On Walking Dead, we start out with the walkers, with like everybody expects them to be, and now we have evolved. We've had barnacle walkers, we've had, you know, now we've got acid zombies. How much of that is out of your brain, and how much is a team effort to come up with all these wild new zombies?
Well, a lot of it is me, only because if I put it in an homage, because we've done a lot of zombie homages, a lot to Tom and to other, you know, we'll put in like some fun little Easter egg zombies, you know, tribute zombies we call them. You know, for me, sometimes the writers write some stuff in there that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because they don't live, eat, and breathe and sleep zombie stuff like I do and like everybody else does. So you can tell. And you're like, oh, the zombie doesn't. I'm like, the zombie would never do that.
What if rays shot out of their eyes?
Yeah. So we would put stuff in there because it's like, oh, that's never been. You know, we just had a meeting the other day for one of the upcoming shows, and I was like, oh, we should do that because that's never happened before. Oh, that would be kind of interesting. And then if they're insistent on doing a gag that we've seen before, then it's my job to change it up so it doesn't feel like we're ripping off another zombie gag. Because everybody that watches the show and sees the zombie stuff, they've seen every other zombie movie. You know, most of them.
We
Well, it's
actually
13
have,
years.
we actually have a game on one of the podcasts that I'm in, that they will put a picture of a zombie up, and we have to tell them what scene that was from. And trust me, none of your zombies are ever identical. We
No,
can tell
never.
exactly where that zombie came from.
I would probably be good at that game.
That would be a fun
good.
trivia
And
game
if
to
I
have.
wasn't, I would be fired.
Anybody else?
I saw one over there. Yeah, Lou had.
You both had a lot of different roles and stuff in film where you know different aspects of what you're doing. Especially you, Tom. You've been a director, an actor, and a special effects guy. How do those different perspectives affect how you view your work? Like as a special effects guy, are you saying the actors, you know, are going to want this, or the director's going to want this?
Did you ask a question?
He did. I got it. I'll start.
I don't hear
jump
very
in.
well, sorry.
Look, when you
Wait,
have
what was the question?
the question was, what was the question? I know what I would say, but I don't know how to repeat it.
You
Doing
better
everything that
repeat
you've
the
done,
question.
doing everything that you've done on set.
How does the different roles you've had within like the film industry affect the way they view each other?
Oh, that's
Do you
it.
like play off that knowledge that you've gained, or?
Well, that's an essay question. We could write a book about that stuff, you know, I mean.
As you should.
Well, yeah, I mean,
We already did.
you know, as a director,
I know Adam signed earlier.
you're in charge of all departments, you know, you're in charge of makeup and costumes and set design and all that, as the director. As the effects guy, you have to take, you know, what's in the script and put it in front of people and make them believe that what they're seeing is really happening. And that's what a magician does. You know, a magician makes you look here, and he's pulling flowers out of his ass. you know, he misdirected you, so this will work, you know. Plus there's mechanical devices you're not aware of, you know, and that, all of that is incorporated. You know, and that's the fun of, I wrote a book called Grand Illusions. It's all about makeup effects. And the first line is, the more you do, the more you get to do. So if you're interested in a career in movies or trying to get in the door, you know, the more things you can do, the better off you're gonna be. Someone's gonna pick a talent, you know. Like my students, there's a student of mine that been at K&B for how many years? Derek.
Oh God.
In the
20.
foam room, okay? He specializes in foam latex. Another guy who specializes in fiberglass, you know, and is working in, you know, they work in mass companies, toy companies, you know. So the more you do, because your question initially was, you know, I do a lot of things, and because that was my belief. You know, my dad could do anything. My dad was a carpenter, a bricklayer, a shoemaker, a plumber, an electrician, and I thought you're supposed to do many things, looking at my dad. And that's what I did, thinking you should be good at many things. And that's paid off, you know, as far as my career goes.
Well, it makes you a better technician too.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and a lot of times, like, one of the things we'll do, like on Walking Dead, we did it all the time, was if there was a gag where somebody got bit or somebody got killed or something happened, we would put guys on the makeup effects crew into zombie makeup to execute it. Like Gino would always get into makeup.
he's gonna be there.
I would always get into makeup because you know, number one, where the camera is, you know exactly where to bite, you know what to do, somebody's pumping the blood. So you're putting somebody in that position that has intimate knowledge of how to do it, as opposed to trusting somebody who doesn't have as much experience. You know, Gino and I did a gag, the episode in Walking Dead where Carl gets shot in the eye, and one of the little kids gets killed by zombies, and I was like, fuck, you know, how are we gonna do it? He's gotta bite this kid on the head, and we gotta have instant blood, but we're shooting at night, we got 300 zombie makeups, and we got all this stuff going on, trying to figure out how to do it, and I was like, wait a second, if we need instant blood, because in a movie, the blood has to be instantaneous. If there's any bit of a delay, it just doesn't look quite right, then it allows your brain to sort of process that, well, there's no blood, so maybe it's not real, and then the blood comes. So we made a set of dentures with blood tubes in them, and we ran the blood tube off the off-camera side, so when Gino bit, we sprayed blood out of the teeth. So it looked like he bit in the top of the head and blood went. And then we didn't have to lose the kid to go off to makeup for an hour to put a prosthetic on.
Right.
I mean, TV is a different world because you don't have time. Like to Tom's question, you know, you don't have a lot of time in the TV world because you shoot an entire episode in 8 days. You know, so you don't have time for take 2. So you got to make sure that take 1 is exactly what you want. And you test it, and you know, blood gags.
Put 6 cameras on it.
Yeah, and blood gags are the trickiest because you never know. Liquid, you know, the physics of water, fluid dynamics. The blood could go that way, it could go that way. If somebody's standing on the tube and you're pumping, and you're like, where's the blood? And then they lift their foot up and then 50 gallons of blood shoots out.
But to your point, Fluffy, my crate creature, was my assistant. I knew he was gonna be there, so he's gonna be Fluffy. I knew I could cast him, and you know, he will always be there, not wait for some actor.
And you could do all the tests on him in the room and the trip, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Right.
Yes.
I've asked this question of Tom Savini before, but either of you all can answer. Have you ever had an oh shit moment? Something fails.
Oh,
Someone's
yeah,
allergic to.
Yeah, normally it doesn't happen because you got take 2, you got take 3, you keep doing it until it works. But on Creepshow, everything I planned on Stephen King, I had a ton of the group plans. We had green lenses that we couldn't get in his eyes. His reflexes were too tight. I had a hand that none of that worked. And I wanted to impress this guy, you know, it's Stephen King. But that's the only time my stuff didn't work, is anything we tried on Stephen King on Creepshow.
Wow.
So that was a big oh shit moment, yeah. Oh, with the cockroaches too. That was the biggest oh shit moment. I was never in the same room with those 28,000 cockroaches.
Do you have one?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I think an oh shit moment for me, which was actually a very unique teaching moment, was on Land of the Dead. And we're up, you know, that was a really hard shoot for me because I felt a tremendous amount of pressure for George because I wanted the movie to be great. It was his first zombie movie since Day of the Dead. And George was under a lot of pressure, tremendous amount of pressure from the studio, budget-wise, so it was not the most fun. I think the closer we got to the end, then we kind of started to breathe a little bit when we knew, oh, we're gonna make it through. But it was a challenging shoot, and George was under a lot of pressure. There was a gag where one of the characters gets bit in the cheek by a zombie at the end of the movie. So we had a gelatin prosthetic with a plug, blood tubes, everything. We get it all ready. The zombie comes out. They rehearse. George yells action. They do the thing, and the zombie comes in. Right when the zombie bites, she raises her arm, and it blocks the camera. And then it moves. But just for that moment of that, which is the best part of a zombie bite, seeing the stretching of the blood. So it was over. George says cut, and turns and looks at me. He's like, "You all right?" And I went, ugh. He said, "Well, the bite got blocked." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, I went up and blocked it." He said, "Let me ask you a question." He said, "If a zombie was biting you in the cheek, would you sit still or would you flail?" And I said, "Well, I would probably flail around." And he goes, "Great." He goes, "You know what? It was real." He said, it was real. That's what that person would do, and that's what makes it real. So don't worry about that. Worry about it feeling authentic as a performance. And I thought that was a very unique teaching moment for me to be like, okay, it's not all about that, but it's about the shot as a whole.
Well, I always use your baseball player zombie makeup as an example, and people think that's CGI because
Yeah,
it's
the
so
whole
good.
energy, yeah.
Yeah, because it's so good.
On Land of the Dead.
Yes.
In Pittsburgh, you talked briefly about it was a priest, right, with the spring head?
Yes.
But I don't know if I heard, was that at a moment you invented, or was that written into the script?
It was in the script. There's a really great gag in Land of the Dead where they're getting ready to get into a car and a zombie grabs somebody and they look and you cut and it's a headless zombie. And they're like, what the fuck? And then the thing leans forward and the head is still attached and flips up and then bites somebody. I forget who it bites on the hand.
Was it Sean Roberts?
It might have been Leguizamo. It might have been John, actually.
No, it was the other. It was one of the other
Soldier guys. Yeah. I don't
can't think of his
remember.
name.
But anyway, so it was real. It was really fun, and it was an interesting gag.
Because as long as the brain is alive.
That's right. So it was
Zombie is
still,
alive.
yeah, and that was really a cool gag. And then they ended up replacing. They did CG stuff over that head, which I never really understood. But again, sometimes when you have these CGI people who will get into the head of the director, or I've seen it where the CGI guys will just do it. They're like, oh, I can make that look better. And I was talking to somebody in France a year or so ago because they wanted to re-release Night of the Living Dead, but they wanted to upgrade all of the effects digitally. And I was like, why? Why would you want to do that? Night of the Living Dead is Night of the Living Dead, it exists. You can't get, and so they did a test shot that he sent me. And they joined two shots together. There was a close-up of a zombie behind a zombie at the door, and then there was a wider shot, and the zombie gets shot, and there's just a little hole. So what they did digitally was they joined the two shots, so it looks like the camera's pulling back, and then they added CG blood to the exit wound. And I was like, fuck you, like who do you guys think you are? That's not your movie to fuck with.
You said Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead, yes. Night of the Living Dead.
My Night of the Living Dead.
No, the original Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, I see. They're doing.
They wanted to do a digital, not yours.
But I want to make an announcement about that. Sony is re-releasing My Night of the Living Dead, completely uncut, uncensored. It will begin in black and white and then become color as it goes along, the way I intended it 35 years ago. So sometime before Halloween, Sony is re-releasing it.
Nice.
Better late than never.
Yeah, right.
Anyone else out there? Yeah.
I
No.
No? Okay.
I do, there are some things I haven't done, but I'm not gonna tell you guys, you'll steal it. You know, it's in my backpack, actually. I have stuff that I want to do, but I'm not gonna reveal
Your
it.
dream book.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Creepshow really allowed us to do a lot. And that was a lot of fun.
The TV show.
The TV show, yes. Because I was the showrunner and the producer and director, everything was practical. And so we did werewolves and we did monster. We did a little bit of everything, and it was really a lot of fun. That show, you know, the crew was so great, and I remember the feeling when every episode we would bring a new monster to set. And the crew people who weren't used to that, because you know nowadays a lot of it's done digitally or in post. A lot of times the crew people would be like, "This is fucking great, man! I love what are you bringing in for the next episode?" So that was a lot of fun. You know, in terms of stuff that I would want to do, I really want to do an Alien movie. I love the franchise, and I've been close a couple times. Like Fede and I are friends, and I was like, please, I want to work on your movies. And he didn't hire me. And then when they did the Alien Earth show, my friends produced that. And ironically, I gave Ridley Scott, years ago, Ridley Scott produced a pilot that I directed. And I gave him a face hugger that was molded off the one from the original movie. And then I got an email from them saying, "Hey, where did you get that facehugger from?" And I said, "Oh, it's from the original movie." And I think they took it and molded it and used it in the Alien Earth TV show.
Well, you probably can't talk about it, but you were at a panel like this, either in Dallas or wherever the hell we were, and somebody asked you about Day of the Dead. And you
Yeah.
said, "We're working on it."
We're working on it.
Okay. Like a remake of Day of the Dead. Not allowed to talk about it, obviously.
But, look, well, I have to now because you brought it. Look, I have been talking to them about taking George's original script
The phone book size
and
script,
sort of
yeah.
doing it like, you know, the version that George had intended to make. That's something that we've been talking about.
So, shh, don't tell me.
Don't tell me. Yeah, but it's being probably my
So I had way back there.
I was just wondering, are you gonna do any more seasons of Creepshow, or is that?
You know, we're working on it. You know, the real challenge is it's all about money. It's all about, you know, every decision that's made is about money. And I know that with Shudder, the last thing they had come back and they're like, yeah, we want to do it, but we want to cut the budget in half from what you had on season 4. And my hopes would be, and what I pitched to them was, let's just do a movie then. Let's just do a 3 or 4 episode and they could still play it on Shudder and, you know, whatever. But I know it's a little trickier with the rights because of Stephen King and Warner Brothers. And
Does Stephen King have anything to do with the rights to all that stuff?
the only thing that Stephen King had to do, you know, we had written a sequel to The Crate, which I really wanted to do for season 2. And Hal Holbrook was still alive. He was actually living in Atlanta. He was in a assisted living facility, and he was going to do it. And the idea centered around Hal Holbrook's character, who was ironically, an assisted living facility, and he's getting bullied by one of the orderly guys there. And he says something to the guy like, you don't know what I'm capable of. You think I'm just this old weak guy, but you don't want to turn out like Billy. And then we realize he figures out that Hal Holbrook had killed his wife, and he goes out to the quarry to find the body. And he finds the crate, and the Fluffy had taken the crate out and into a cave, and there's a bunch of little fluffiers. And it was a great script. Me and a guy named Matt Bain wrote it, and we were going to shoot it. And I was like, this is super fun. We're recreating, paying homage to.
I thought you were going to Antarctica to find Fluffy.
No, that was something. No, that would. I think we talked about that,
Yeah.
but I kind of liked it. I just liked keeping Hal Holbrook in it. And then we had the script was written and we were ready to go, and then somebody said, "Oh, we need, you need what's called a clear chain of title. Like you have to know that the rights are available." And Stephen King does something really amazing for people is that he'll give them the rights to shoot one of his short stories for $1 because he wants to perpetuate people making short films and stuff. So, you know, he'll be like, they couldn't guarantee that he hadn't given the rights to somebody, and they couldn't prove it or disprove it, so they're like, we can't make it. I mean, I still have the script, and I was like, shit, it was really good.
I got a question there.
In The Walking Dead, one of the moments that sticks out to me the most is from the very beginning, when Rick is on his horse riding through the city.
Yeah.
And all the walkers are following him, and he ends up in the tank.
Yeah.
And all the zombies are just eating this horse. How in the world did you guys make that look so real? All the horse that's coming out and everything?
Yeah, well, we made a fake horse. Loaded it up with guts. And the funniest thing about that shot in particular, was we loaded it up with guts, and we had 2 or 3 cameras filming it. And the zombies are in there, and they're ripping and biting and eating. And there was one guy who was leaning too far over and was hiding, and the camera was missing because the guy was in the way. And I was standing right there, and I see Frank come up, and he grabs the guy by the belt and pulls him back out of the shot. And the guy's like with guts going, what's happening? What's happening? And looking around because Frank was watching the monitor, and it looked so great, but there was one angle that there was a zombie in the way. And it's just like, and he literally pulled the guy out. But that was all, look, Walking Dead was an homage to the original Night of the Living Dead. You know, when we did the first season, Frank had always said to me, he had always wanted to do a zombie movie, always. And I remember talking to him about it, and he's like, yeah, I just never really found the right material. And then cut to the graphic novel coming out, and Frank gets the rights. And it was, you know, it was a story about survival, you know, and that was something that he loved. That, you know, the first season is some of the best hours of television ever made. And it was really done because Frank had such a respect and love for George. And I think the thing that's missing in a lot of genre television now is a lot of the writers, it's not in their blood. They don't love it. They didn't grow up watching Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead or know who Tom Savini is. So it becomes a soap opera and not something scary. I want to be scared. Like, if I want a soap opera, then you can put on fucking Real Housewives. You know.
We have time for one more.
I'm just curious, is it like upon an actor request, or is there a default flavor for any of the effects that have to go in people's mouths, like biting somebody and the blood? Is that just like I would make it myself out of like old school style corn syrup?
Well, I mean, it's the blood is made out of corn syrup, so it's usually sweet anyway.
Has anybody ever requested, can you make this like strawberry flavor?
No, but we did. You know, on Walking Dead, we have mouth stain because we never want the mouths to be pink because that signifies life. So we stain everybody with a mouth stain.
What's it? What color is it?
It's
Black?
gray. It's like black, so that the gums are gray, everything's gray, and it just looks dead. Looks great. And sometimes we would make different colors. I think in season 2 of Walking Dead with Sophia, when she came out of the barn as a zombie, I think we made flavored ones for her because she was a young girl. Yeah, and you know, we've gotten into scenes where I think we did one scene where, you know, we would use barbecue when they would be eating meat. But the thing is, barbecue has vinegar in it, and it would fucking dissolve the makeup. And then we would be like cleaning up. We're like, what the hell happened to all the makeup around their mouths? And it was the vinegar and the barbecue sauce. And then we had one guy who, you know, we shot this scene, and he came up to me and he's like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I've been a vegetarian for 20 years, and that was the first time I've eaten meat in 20 years. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? You didn't have to. You could have you could have done like Tasso on Day of the Dead with the gut. Tasso would just do this and just turn his head away.
Well, because the guts were rotten.
Yes.
On Dawn of the Dead,
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead, somebody unplugged our refrigerator when we shot in Florida for a couple of weeks.
No.
But we still had to use them because you're not gonna go buy new guts at 2 o'clock in the morning. And you were gut boy. He was the one that had to go get the guts. But they stank so bad. And poor Joe Pilato, his body is under the set. Fake body was on top. That was filled with blood. And he was breathing that for hours. It was really horrible.
So now.
I'm surprised nobody got sick.
Yeah.
Because so they turned the power off over Christmas, and we came back from Fort Myers, and I'll never forget walking down the hallway to get to the, I'm like, something smells weird. And the closer we got to the room, it got stronger, and we opened the door to the room, and I'm like, oh my god.
Because they're real pig intestines.
So Tom's like, you got to go clean them because we have to use them. So I took them out and we put them in this big basin, and I poured Clorox bleach on them. That's how you clean guts and you get rid of all that stuff. And literally, it started foaming.
I
There was
didn't
so
know you
much
had that. I
bacteria.
didn't know you did that.
I cleaned them and they still smelled that bad. I cleaned them when we first got them, and then I cleaned them. And by the way, those guts, we had them. We started shooting October 1st of 1984.
We had a 5-gallon drum of guts.
That we got for the first, when Tim DeLeo wakes up, we shot a scene where he wakes up and his guts spill out. It was like the first week of shooting. So we bought the guts in end of September. Now it's January and we were using the same guts. We never
Money, man, money.
No, we could have. We were like, oh, fuck it, we'll be
We're in a
fine.
cave, we're in a mine 25 miles from Pittsburgh, Guts weren't readily available. I mean, we could have made fake guts, but nothing slithers and
We had
slides
some
and
fake guts.
splats. Yeah, we had a tube that we
Yeah.
would tie the real guts
You
in.
had supporting fake guts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ew. Well,
Oh, it's so glamorous doing makeup in movies.
Yeah, that was my job. My job would be get the guts and then go to Rite Aid and buy KY and condoms to make all the head squibs wet.
Yeah.
So that was I'd walk in and I'm like, can I have 500 condoms, please? And where the hell are you going this weekend? It's the usual. And then like the next week, I'd go in and buy 500 more. All the girls were like, what's going on? How you doing? I'm like, yeah. And then of course, I could never tell them what I was using them for because I didn't want to ruin the illusion.
Oh my God. Oh, well, gentlemen, thank you for that trauma.
That was a good
That's a
ending.
great way to end this. Give it up, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.